Hello, this is Madcat, the angry egalitarian that discusses this and that. Today is another edition of Madcat Smash Feminism, number 33. All right, so I apologize for today. My family ended up staying home a lot longer than they were supposed to. No one told me anything. I can't wait to move. Also, I was supposed to have Max Durant on this show today, and something came up for him. So he says he's definitely interested in doing a show with me, but given. Oh, fuck. All right. So he's definitely interested in doing a show with me. Given our two schedules right now, it probably won't happen until next month, but who knows? All right, so let's go ahead and jump right into our show. Ooh, that's fun. Stop. Okay, let's try this again. There we go. All right, so why men need a feminist dating site. This is a rather interesting one. Give it a moment to load up. There we go. Let me see if I can expand this for you. My brief experience with online dating has taught me that I hate it with a fiery passion. You and me both, sister. As a woman, I felt objected, and like a lot of men on there wanted to see pictures of me so they could judge me if I was hot enough to go out for coffee with. Okay. And I know I'm not alone. My female friends who have been involved in online dating have commensurate with me on this. And have you bothered talking to men about their experience in online dating? When I received multiple requests for photographs of myself, I wondered why I was on the spot. It seemed entirely unfair. These men were demanding things of me, yet they were held to no aesthetic standard. Actually, men on dating sites are held to an aesthetic standard. Oftentimes, women won't talk to them if they don't look amazingly handsome, or there's something about their profile that it's just like women are looking for a reason not to talk to guys when they message women. And not all guys on there are looking for photos of yourself. I declined request after request to see more pictures of myself because the first picture I uploaded looked like me. So, in other words, your first picture was not a picture of you, but rather a picture of another person that looked a lot like you. And you're wondering why people wanted to see pictures of you. I'm also willing to bet that on your profile you said, this is not a picture of me, but someone who looks like me. See, to me, that's a little bit dishonest. Excuse me. I mean, no wonder why people were asking to see pictures of you, because they don't like being lied to. And that's basically what you're doing when you upload a picture of someone else. You would hate it if someone uploaded a picture of a really attractive guy and then you meet the person and they're not as attractive, although they do look similar. Because by their excuse, they could say, well, the picture looks like me. And you would be angry with that bullshit. And yet, that's exactly what you've done. You uploaded a picture and you wonder why people want to see pictures of you. Now, yeah, they may want to see nude pictures of you, But men like to see nude pictures of girls. That's just a common fact. Okay? But if I found out that a picture I'm looking at is not actually the woman that I'm talking to, I would feel a little betrayed by that. And I would want to see what you actually look like. Because even if we were to end up meeting in public, how can I possibly find you? Because I don't know what you precisely look like. And you're bitching about this? I'm not going to meet someone who I don't know what they look like. That's just rule number one in this world. You know, just because you might look like her, in what aspect do you look like her? Do you have the same hair? Do you have the same eyes, nose feature? Is it your overall face structure? And it's a little bit hard to ask that. In what ways do you look like this girl? Because even then, that's not enough information. So, yeah, people would want to know what you specifically look like. All right, so if they wanted to meet me in person, they would find out exactly what I'd look like, and furthermore, why they were so preoccupied with looks. Well, it's not so much about looks, it's about making sure that the person they're meeting is actually the person they're supposed to meet. I mean, putting up another person's picture and say, well, I look similar to that, they could be meeting almost anyone. I mean, I've had people do that to me before. Like, girls would post like really skinny pictures of themselves, and then it ends up turning out to be a really fat girl. And I'm not necessarily bothered that she was fat, but I was very bothered that she lied to me. If she had told me the truth, like, oh yeah, I'm actually, BBW, I could have accepted that. And I'm like, well, why are you showing this picture then rather than what you really look like? Oh, okay, well, can I see an actual picture of you? But to kind of, spring it on me like, oh, this is what I really look like, it's like, you bitch. If I had done this to you, you would have been angry with me. So it's not so much that men are preoccupied with looks, they just don't like being lied to. Now, it does happen, yes, that men want to see like pictures of you, more pictures of you, maybe even nude pictures of you. But that's common everywhere. I want to be attracted to a person's physical appearance as well as their soul. I couldn't understand why these people were obsessing over seeing different angles of me. How about maybe they're obsessing over the idea of just seeing what you look like? Especially since you said right up here, what I uploaded looked like me. I deleted my profile after a brief stint on a popular dating site. The initial plunge I took into joining an online dating site was to see what was out there. I wasn't sure what I was looking for or even if I wanted a relationship. I just wanted to explore territory. Oh, okay. So you went onto a dating site, unsure of what to find, and surprise, surprise, you found people there who wanted to date and to have sex, and you're bitching about that. Because that's not what you necessarily wanted. And yeah, it's actually true. That's what you wanted. You wanted to meet someone, but only if it was the right someone. You want to know them for their soul, fine. But how many times did you try to go out and find a man to be with? How many profiles did you look at? And I'm going to bet zero. Because now you talk about a popular site. I'm going to guess was OkCupid. And I'll tell you, on OkCupid, I've had an interesting experience. Most of the time, I get no contact from any girls whatsoever. Now, you might say, well, that's because of my profile. That may be because I'm an ugly son of a bitch. But, you know, I've built relationships over OkCupid, but it always required me to make the first initial contact with a woman. You know, never have I formed a relationship on OkCupid that I didn't have to initiate it, where a woman initiated with me and then we ended up having a relationship. Anytime a woman did initiate contact with me, after I replied back from her, I never heard from her. And, you know, there was a recent site, what was it, Amber Rose or whatever? It was a site for men wanting to cheat on their wives. And all the user content was leaked online. And guess what it found? That most female profiles were bots. They were fake profiles, so people could boast about, oh, well, we have this many females on this site. Come check us out. And most of them were fake. So I presume that many sites, like even OkCupid does this, that they have a lot of fake female sites that will send out a message just to keep people interested if, hey, even though this person didn't contact me back, maybe there's someone out there for me. Maybe I should spend the extra few dollars just to see if I could find someone. And that's what their business model is. You know, being a man on these sites is actually more challenging than it is being a girl, because there are many men on there who are looking for something real, are looking for a relationship, not necessarily interested in getting into a girl's pants, and they often find nothing. So in turn, they kind of have to go on the offensive and keep contacting women, hoping something to come out of it. And then nothing ever does. After my failure at traditional online dating, I got to thinking. I was lamenting with my friend Chris via text about how much I hate online dating scene. Then he wrote, there should be a dating site where women screen the men before they join. I felt a flash of light hit me in the face. That is genius. No, it's stupid. I texted him back. We started brainstorming. I said to him, I'm going to make that site. Yes, he replied. Can I help? He said. Of course, I replied. Thank you for the play-by-play on that one. Or else I'd been wondering what happened in the conversation. What did you say after you said, of course? So they ended up naming the site Lonely Aphrodite, and that's the image they have, which is a very suggestive sexual image, yet that's what they're trying to go away from, that it's more about the heart of the individual, yet they have an image that is highly suggestive of a sexual sense. So already they're being hypocrites. It's all about, you know, what's inside of a person. And instead you show a woman that's practically naked. I mean, her nightgown or dress or whatever is rather see-through. And you're just covering up the naughty bits in a very coy way. I mean, we're about like 1 centimeter away from seeing her nipples. For sexually empowered women, where we're going to use sex, but then tell people it's not about sex. You may be wondering why a feminist dating site is necessary or useful to men. The reality is that this type of site is beneficial to both sexes. In a relationship, both individuals need to be equally respected. But you're not respecting men. You've pretty much already established that. But let's go ahead and continue. This is one of those fundamental principles of feminism. Gender equality. Women and men are equal, and this should be manifested in romantic relationships. Unfortunately, on traditional dating sites, the men run the show. Bullshit! The burden of proof is on women to show that they're attracted enough for the hordes of men wanting to have their way with them. This is the philosophy that we at Lonely Aphrodite want to fight against. I'll wait till they talk about it more about why this is not equal to men at all. But saying that men run the show on dating sites is a gross misunderstanding of what the male experience on dating sites are. Men don't run the show. I hate to break it to you, but women actually run the show. Yeah, you got hordes of men trying to get pictures of you and trying to get your attention. But they're doing that because you have the power to decide whether or not you're going to do that. If I start talking to a woman on a dating site and she's like, well, can I see a picture of you? And I say no, she'll stop talking to me. And no one is going to take my side and say, like, yeah, she was a complete bitch for not stop talking to you for not showing your picture of yourself. It would be, well, what do you have to hide? That's the way it would be. But if the reverse was true and a woman's like, I stopped talking to the guy because he wanted to see a picture of me, that asshole. Women have a lot more power in this society than they're willing to admit. And dating sites is no different. Now, yes, men are asking women to see them more, possibly because they know they'll never actually meet a person, so they might as well get the most out of the experience that they can, which might just be seeing their tits or seeing other naked parts of their body. Or they want to make sure that you're a real person and you're not using some fake image, which has happened, especially since there are many times where guys are posting as girls and throw up a random pic and refuse to show another pic of themselves because they can't get another pic of themselves. And this happens. I mean, this has happened to me. A girl that I knew for the longest time ended up being a guy, and he showed me pictures of his sister. And I mean, that was just, disgusting that he did that, but it happens. So yeah, if I start talking to a girl and it starts going good, I'd want to see more pictures of her just to make sure that she is telling the truth about herself. And taking a selfie of oneself and then sending it is a very good way of determining if that person is really legitimate. Because, there are bots out there. There are women who are lying about themselves out there. And there are men pretending to be women. Men have no power when it comes to dating websites. Where do you get off on it? Just because you get her attention from men on a dating website? How many times have you given any man any attention on a fucking dating website? Most women don't. They wait for men to contact them, and then they can pick through the sea of options which one they'll talk to. Men have had the proverbial foot on the gas for ages. It's time to flip the burden of proof on its head and allow women the opportunity to get behind the wheel. The panel of women at Lonely Aphrodite will be reading essays from men who actively want to join the site. What? Reading essays from men who actively want to join the site. But again, both individuals need to be respected. So, are you also doing this for women? Do women need to write an essay to be on the site? What's that? No, they don't? Then how is that equality? You're making men jump through hoops just to be on your site. And that, in your mind, is equality. The reasons for wanting to join will range from man to man. In addition to the usual dating site questionnaire, which asks the user for information about themselves, the men will have an opportunity to speak about women's rights or another topic of the panel's choosing. So not only do men need to write an essay about why they want to be there, but they also need to write an essay on what their thoughts of women's rights are. And if it's not specific to your specific panel group, you will deny them. That's what I'm hearing. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what feminism thinks equality means. By making men be judged right when they sign up for a site, having to pass all of these checks just to make sure they can join. And I'm pretty sure they're going to Google the fuck out of these guys just to make sure they're able to join. And if they pass all the background checks and the essay portion, then they can go onto the site where they're going to be judged by women who have the control of human interaction. All just so there's equality. But this isn't equality. Not by any stretch of the imagination. Because if it was equality, anything you do for one gender, you have to do for the other gender. And, you know, you being feminist and all, it seems quite fitting to me. It seems quite interesting to me that you seem to be working on a gender binary. You know, what about trans men? Do they have to do it? What about trans women? Do they have to do it? What about gay men? Do they have to do it? Because it seems to be that the only thing you care about is women having the control. And there are many other genders out there. There are trans individuals going to a different gender. But it seems that your only problem is men, and the only one you want to help is women. Now, personally, I don't get into all that gender politics. I do get annoyed with the whole bathroom issue. But as feminists, this is a feminist issue with all the different genders and sexualities and races. And so far, your modus operandi seems to be standing against gender. You put it into a binary. But even then, even if you did consider all the others, I'm still willing to bet that cis men would have to do the essay and no other gender has to. Well, fuck you. Who the fuck do you think you are to determine that equality means that men have to work much harder than they already do to try to get the attention of a woman? To try to make sure that they're being told the truth of who they are. Of being said, oh, well, we need to judge you first to see if you can even be on our site and make sure that your politics is exactly what we want them to be, even though we do not put this judgment on a woman. I'm willing to bet that an anti-feminist woman could join this site and these women would have no problem with that. But a man cannot join this site unless he can properly demonstrate that he has the right politics and can demonstrate that he has no intention of looking for sex. He only wants a relationship, a non-sexual relationship, because that's basically what you're saying. And just accept that when a woman says something to him, it's the absolute truth, even if you can prove she's lying. You don't ever call her out on that. That is what this is. This is fucking disgusting. Yeah, you had a bad experience on a dating website. Well, here's news for you. So have I. And I have a motherfucking cock. I've had bad experiences on several different websites. You don't see me starting up a website that says, oh, all women have to give me their driver's license so they can prove that they are actually women. Because I know, one, it would never happen, and two, if I didn't put the same standard on men, all you feminist cunts out there would be saying, oh, well, you know, that's sexism because you're putting an expectation on one gender and not the other. That's exactly what you're fucking doing. This is what you're doing. You're making a website that is sexist towards men, and you think it's a good idea just to make sure that you just get the specific subset of men. Let me check comments. Ooh, there's people. If all men stopped making the first move, the human race would die in about 50 years. Yeah, it would. Warped reflection. That shit goes on all the time. The nicked pick thing, having to write an essay. Fuck that shit. I feel sorry for you, men. All right, so I think I've smashed that issue enough. Let's go to Return of Kings. Anyone else hearing the theme to Lord of the Rings? All right. So if you don't know, The Return of Kings is a website that was started by Roosh V. So Return of King hits primetime with a segment on the Jimmy Kimmel Live show. So let's see what this has in store for us. On Tuesday night, the Jimmy Kimmel Live show created a segment to ridicule the undeniable influence we have in steering men away from seeing the social justice reboot of Star Wars. Now, for those who don't know, in the media one of these individuals wrote, and we'll see that actually below, 55% of respondents to Return King's Twitter poll have said that online reporting of the social justice nature of The Force Awakens influenced their decision on whether to see the film. They extended across a readership with over 900,000 users accessing Return of Kings between November 21st and December 21st. This amounts to a potential direct impact of $4.2 million on total revenues. Now, I think the film's made like $300 million in total revenue. So really, 4.2 million is really nothing. But let's see what Jimmy Kimmel has to say on this.
They came up with the figure is it's ridiculous, but they boycott. There's a men's rights group called Return of Kings, which claims that their boycott of Star Wars cost Disney $4.2 million. Now, the way they came up with the figure is it's ridiculous, but they boycotted Star Wars because of its, quote, non-white and female agenda. And while most people would say these guys are crazy, Disney's heard their complaints, and to try to embrace as wide an audience as possible, they're actually working to address them. And I have now the exclusive first clip of the new men's rights group approved edition of Star Wars: The Force Awakens.
Episode 7, The Force Awakens. Brawl! Luke Skywalker has vanished. It's a total bummer. While he's been chilling in his secret chill spot, these dudes came by called the First Order. They're actually pretty dope, and they have some pretty interesting things to say about women and minorities. Resistance pilot Doe Dameron, man, has been sent to the remote planet of Jakku to recover a bottle of Axe body spray that many led to Luke. If the Resistance find the Skywalker man cave, well, I can't read that fast. Reading is hella boring, so here are some huge jugs. Nice. All right. So, I mean, yeah, it was meant to just be a jab at Return of Kings. But, you know, there's a lot of people been reporting on this issue. And, well, there's a lot of problems with it. And that's why I decided to go to Return of King's own website to see how they respond to all of this. So let's go ahead and continue. Not only did Jimmy Kimmel misidentify us as men's rights organization, but the stereotype his writers apply to us has nothing to do with the neo-masculinity and self-improvement ideas that we promote daily. So this, well, and I think someone down here said it, although I'm sure I've lost it by now, that they misidentified them as being a men's rights organization. It has been stated time and time again that the pickup artist movement is not a men's rights campaign. In fact, one of the comments down below, which I can't find anymore, states that they don't like the men's rights organizations because they see them as whiny pissants, that they are weak men. So it's just funny to me that if a man speaks out against something on the basis of social justice, then they're automatically labeled a men's rights organization. And I'll tell you something, I'm a little offended that the media has taken Return of Kings and said that they're a men's rights organization. I'm not surprised by it. I know that, you know, anytime a man speaks up about how they hate feminism, they're automatically labeled a men's rights activist. And, you know, that's what happened with so many men in this world, like Elliot Rodgers. Well, he has to be a men's rights activist because he hates women, because that's the only defining quality of a men's rights activist, is that they hate women. All right, so let me double check comments because I have to keep going back and forth on this. I'm only having one screen right now as I'm in the process of moving. Warped Reflection. Roos has said it many times himself. PUA has fuck all to do with the men's rights movement. Yeah. All right, so let's move on. This was a nice article. I figured a different change of pace, but 10 ways to make divorce fairer for fathers. Today is D-Day, which was January 4th, the day when divorce lawyers are flooded with inquiries from couples who can't stand the thought of another Christmas together. In around 95% of those cases, why do the British use PC? Why can't you just use a percentage sign like the Americans? I don't know. Moms will retain custody of their children and be defined by the child maintenance service as the receiving parent, while the dad becomes the paying parent. In total, 1 million children in the UK have no significant contact with their fathers, and by the time they reach 15, only 57% of children are still living with their dads. I think it's talking about two different statistics here, because when you put it together, it makes no sense. But it's indicating that 1 million children have no significant contact with their fathers, but 57% of all children are still living with their dads by the age of 15. So yeah, so you have to kind of analyze that to see that 1 million children is not reflective of that 57%, and that 57% is likely a very high number. Okay, so in maternal gatekeeping, almost the entire focus of feminism since Mary Wollstonecraft, there's a Scrabble name, declared, "Let women share the rights, and she will emulate the virtues of man." In the 1792, which has been about dismantling the patriarchy and tackling male privilege to give women equality in the masculine realm. What the world continues to overlook in its quest for gender equality is the areas where matriarchy and patriarchy conspire to disadvantage men. Nowhere can female privilege be seen more clearly than in the feminine realm of parents where, through a process known as maternal gatekeeping, women have the power to either cultivate or curtail the involvement of fathers in their children's lives. If we are serious about gender equality, then it requires every individual, organization, and institution in the country to become aware of the female privilege of maternal gatekeeping. We must find ways to support moms who cultivate father involvement and challenge those women who curtail it. And yeah, most of my understanding of the divorce proceedings is from the United States. So this is a nice look at the UK and how they deal with it. So I don't really know any specific details about some of these things that they're mentioning, but I mean, what seems to be true in the UK is definitely true in the US. Women can decide how much involvement a father can have in their child's life. That child is also belonging to them, but the law does not recognize that. The law states that women give automatic custody in almost every case. And if she decides that the father does not get to be involved, then he doesn't get to be involved. Now, the court can certainly circumvent that, but it's almost very rare for that to happen. And usually the man has to have a lot of money in order to do that. So what this is saying is, let's support moms who want fathers involved. Let's encourage them. Yeah, you're doing what's best for your child. And let's challenge the women who say, I don't want the father involved. I don't care if he wants to be a part of the child's life. I don't want him a part of the child's life. Give dads equal rights from birth. It's a little known fact that in 2015, men still don't have equal parental rights. New mothers are given the right to make decisions about where the child lives, their education, religious, and medical care. They also have the privilege of deciding whether or not to grant those rights to the father of their children, as we just discussed. When a woman consents to marrying a man, she grants him parental rights. When an unmarried woman allows a man's name to be recorded on the birth certificate, she grants him parental rights. But if a new mom is unmarried and fails to name the father on the birth certificate, then the dad has no parental rights. Now, see, this is interesting because in the United States, if a woman names a man on a birth certificate, she can still decide that he has no access to the child whatsoever. The only thing naming the child on the birth certificate will do is that if she files for state-funded funds, that they can look at the birth certificate and like, okay, well, this man needs to be paying, and therefore he's required to pay. And, yeah, a father should be paying for supporting their child, but should also be able to see their child. If a man has to pay 1 cent for the well-being of his child, then he should be able to see his child. But that's not the way it works in the United States. And it looks very certain that it doesn't work that way in the UK. Warped reflection. Yep, it's the same in the UK for child custody. Can you expand on that warped reflection? Because I can't see these comments as I read them. So skipping that. Close the parent. I can't speak right now. And I think I just made a goat noise. I'm not really sure. Close the paternity leave gap. Whew, I made it through that. Dads do not have an equal opportunity to take paid parental leave when their child is born, and this forces most couples into unequal parental arrangements, which accurately disadvantage dads who don't live with moms. This imbalance can be best seen in contrast with Sweden, where the state promotes a culture of shared parenting. Swedish dads who divorce and separate are 3 times more likely to share parenting than in the UK. According to the Women's Equality Party, WEP, I'm a technology buff, so when I see WEP, I think wireless encryption protocol. The current system discriminates against dads, with most working mothers entitled to 6 weeks leave at 90% of their full pay, while fathers get just 2 weeks paid at the statutory level of £139 a week. I'm sure in the United States, that's $100 a week. WEP is campaigning for a longer, better paid paternity leave with the proportion of the parental leave set aside for dads on a use it or lose it basis. Okay, so hopefully I'm not misunderstanding this, but that actually sounds good that the Women's Equality Party is saying, hey, let's give more paternity leave to fathers. And this way, not all of the work for the child has to be done by the mother. It can be shared by both. But, whatever we give for the mother, and yeah, she just gave birth. She has to recover. She has to care for the child. But while she's recovering, the father can also start caring for the child. And if we're going to give paid paternity leave for women, let's also give it to men. I fully support this. Stop the fatherhood tax. Now, this was rather interesting for me. Let's check out the comments real quick. The women tends to get the child and males the decision on access, etc. The man has to go to court to fight for access if she denies him. Makes the decisions. Okay. So yeah, sounds like it's pretty much the same in the US. I'm imagining most first world countries are pretty much like this. Okay, the UK benefits system has been designed in a way that makes it harder for separated dads to stay involved in the children's lives. According to the Center for Social Justice, a couple earning £10,000 each per year would receive around £7,000 of benefits and tax credits and bring home $26,500 between them. I don't know how this math works because it doesn't make sense to me, but I'm sure there's some tax book that can explain it for the UK. I don't need to know, by the way. I really don't care. I don't live in the UK. I would like to one day, but not right this second. If they separate and continue to share parenting with their child sleeping at dad's 182 nights a year and mom 183 nights a year, they would receive roughly around $12,500 in benefits and tax credit between them and take home nearly £32,000. Okay, that sounds nice, but here's the crunch. A staggering 90% of those benefits and credits would be paid directly to the mother. In addition, the dad would be required to pay his 10% to the mother as child maintenance, plus an additional 50% on top of that from his own pocket. And I'm going to guess that child maintenance is also what we call child support in the United States. This is just one way our tax and benefit systems make it harder for separated dads to stay in their children's life. More broadly, research tells us that families in the poorest neighborhoods are up to 3 times more likely to be fatherless, while separated dads find it easier to stay in contact with their children if they are homeowners with multiple bedrooms and the resources to pay the child's maintenance. And there you go. It looks like men are required to pay for their wife and their child. I mean, they're saying additional 50% on top of it out of their own pocket. So it looks like they have to pay 60% of the money that a woman makes, even if she works a full-time job. So he has to be making basically 60% more than the average man would have to make in order to be able to survive on his own and also pay for his child. I'm flabbergasted by this. I mean, I thought the child support in the United States was bad, and yeah, it is. But this sounds worse. So yeah, if you don't have the money, you don't get to see your child. But that doesn't happen for women, does it? Yeah, maintenance is the same as your support. Yeah, I figured as much. 5, introduce the no blame divorce. One of the major problems with family law in England and Wales is that at the time when parents need to work together for the sake of their children, the law requires them to appropriate blame. I know that's not the word they use, but for the failure of their marriage. The introduction of a no fault, or more accurately, a no blame divorce would send a very clear message that divorce is time when the grown-up thing to do is to sit down together and resolve matters, not hide behind lawyers and blaming each other. Actually, I think that might work in the United States as well, if it stops being about how wrong a woman was and how she deserves so much more money for basically doing next to nothing as far as earning the money. But she should be paid. I mean, that's what happened to Robin Williams right there, is that he had to keep paying his ex-spouses like ever so much money every year. Now, I understand why that law is in existence, but I don't think it accounted for it being misused in this way. So we do need this kind of thing where it's like, you know, you need to sit down and you need to work on it. And if it doesn't work, then you need to sit down and work on it. And if it doesn't work after that, you need to sit down and work on it. You know, we got to stop letting divorce be so easy to obtain and that it being so biased against men. Mediation and early intervention. This looks like it's just talking about, you know, just try to find ways to address problems in the marriage early on. Getting tough on abusive moms. One of the most common complaints of separated fathers is that mothers feel entitled to adopt the maternal gatekeeper role and interfere with the time that the dad spends with their kids. This interference can range from imposing conditions about what the father can and cannot do with his child to blocking or restricting access, and in an extreme case, alienating children against their fathers. This can also happen to mothers who don't have custody. So, and, you know, it kind of reminds me of the film Mrs. Doubtfire, which I didn't really mean to talk about Robin Williams back there. But, you know, this happened in Mrs. Doubtfire where the mom was basically like she would come early to pick up the kids, even though it blocked his time, and that he had to work around her schedule. And who cared about his schedule? I mean, she was just a complete bitch, but this is what happens. Now, I thought that this would talk a little bit more about the abusive moms and how women are more likely to be abusive to their children than fathers are, but it doesn't. But it basically is a breach of family contract that women are able to break, and women are not brought up on charges. But if a man breaks a family contract, he could go to jail. And I'm sure that's also the same in the UK. Modernizing the judiciary, I didn't really focus on. It's basically saying, how can male judges who don't go through this have any say on this? How can they determine that fathers are bad if they themselves haven't gone through this themselves? Strengthen marriage and relationships. While the best defense against divorce is to avoid getting married, well, that's what I've done. In the first place, it's important to note that married families are generally the more stable, with parents who tie the knot being less likely to separate. Is there any other way of getting married? The idea of social engineering family life by incentivizing marriage through the tax system has been a politically diverse idea. Yet, if we are to protect adults and children from the negative impacts of separation, we need to find ways of strengthening family and relationships that can garner support across the political system. I'm sorry, but I don't really see how this makes divorce fairer for fathers. This is saying strengthen the marriage so divorce doesn't happen. I mean, I guess in a way that would actually strengthen it for fathers, that they don't have to get a divorce. But if they're in an abusive relationship, they want to get a divorce, they know that if they do, a mother gets the custody of a child. Let's talk about that. And this talks about shared parenting, and that that should be what the legal precedence is, but it's not. Okay, so that about does it for the article. There were a lot of really good talking points, pretty much up to 5. And then the rest of the article is just kind of like, let's do these other changes that don't really have to do with what we're talking about, but would be good anyways. Okay, so let's go to our next article. Intel is taking its fight against Gamergate even further. Now, I don't often talk about Gamergate on this channel, not because, I'm trying to steer clear of Gamergate, but mostly anything that comes across my desk as far as Gamergate is stuff that's already well known or has been covered by Breitbart. But, here's the kicker with Gamergate is I think it's kind of like dying down now. We just got the embers of the Great Fire. And the problem is that if these companies were like, you know what, Gamergate's dying down now, let's ignore it, it'd pretty much go away. Intel taking further action against Gamergate is only going to restart that fire. But let's find out what the fuck they're doing. The most important news from last year's CES is Intel's $300 million response to Gamergate, the caustic online movement in targeting women with vicious harassment. But talk is cheap even with that high of a price tag. How has the Tech Titan fared since that announcement? Some 43% of its new hires were women. Some 43%? Are you saying some of that 43% or that 43% were women? And underrepresented minorities. CEO Brian Krasnich said near the end of the company's media briefing. Okay, and let's skip over this hoo-ha. The Intel CEO is taking the Gamergate response a step further than that, too. We must remember that behind every device, every game, every connection, and every tweet is a real person with real feelings and needs for safety and inclusion. To that end, on Thursday, Intel is joining Vox Media, who also own Polygon, and Recode, specifically along with Lady Gaga's Born This Way Foundation, to create an industry-wide initiative to fight online harassment. Here's to hoping that can be as effective and as swift as the company's diversity efforts. So what this is basically saying is that Intel is going to be fighting against online harassment, and they're already biased about the Gamergate movement. stating that, oh, well, Gamergate is bad. They're harassing people, even though we really haven't harassed anyone. If anything, Gamergate has received more harassment from the anti-Gamergate side, but you ignore that because there's a feminist sucking your dick right now saying, I'll continue sucking your dick if you start fighting against Gamergate. And that's all it is. You threw $300 million because Anita Sarkeesian was on your side. Because you believe you're fighting the good fight for women's equality. Well, no, you're actually not. You're fighting the good fight to bring more media attention to these whores like Brianna Wu and Anita Sarkeesian. That's all you're doing. And you're going to be targeting the wrong people for online harassment when, men are more likely to receive online harassment than women are. It's been statistically proven that men are more likely to receive online harassment than women. And yet the world believes that it's only women who receive online harassment. So good job, Intel. If I didn't have an Intel CPU right now, I would go out and buy AMD because that's how fucking pissed off I am right now. I have to use your fucking product because I can't afford a whole new system. In fact, I'm quite certain that if I could afford a new system, I would take a video of me pissing on an Intel chip just to show you how fucking pissed off I'm with you at the stupid politics that you're doing. You should be out of this fight altogether. You shouldn't be in the middle of it, and yet you are because some whore is sucking your motherfucking dick. Okay, last article for the day. Are you single? Sunrise weather presenter hits on unsuspecting beachgoer labeled brave. Now, first, this article is talking about Chris Gale. And I don't know if any of you know, I'm certain my Australian viewers know about this. But basically, this cricket player hit on this female reporter on air. Now, all he actually said was, I wanted to do an interview with you. You have nice eyes. Maybe after this match today, we can go out and get a drink. Now, was it unprofessional? Yes, it actually was. It was actually rather unprofessional. I do agree there. But is what he did really bad? Well, it's bad, but not that big of a deal. And yet people are treating it like, he's like, hey, baby, I want to see your tits, yo. Oh, and let's find out what color panties you're wearing. How about you slip them down now and shove my dick inside you? That's the way people are treating it. All he said is, you have nice eyes. Would you like to get a drink after this? And, she was uncomfortable by it, granted. But, the law shouldn't be about whether or not people feel comfortable. Okay? But now this article is really great. So let me go through. So Gale tried to explain it away as just a joke, but others claim the Big Bash League star is a serial pest and has form for making inappropriate advances towards female journalists. The incident has kicked off in an important debate about appropriate behavior in the workplace. But what if the shoe was on the other foot? When Sunrise weather presenter Nuala Hafner openly hit on a semi-naked beachgoer during a live TV segment in December 2014, there was no such outrage. While presenting for the Channel 7 morning show Sydney Balmoral Beach, Hefner spotted a Speedo-clad man going about his morning exercise. Story of my life. He would rather get wet than come over to me. Nuala joked with Kochi and co-host Natalie Barr back in the studio. Is this some kind of mating display? Because I'm really enjoying it. So rather going through all of this, I'm actually going to play the video for you. If it loads.
Good morning, Muscly Man. Hello. Good to see you. He waved. Did you see that? Yeah.
Let's push up time.
That's unfortunate. Oh, wow. How are you? I'm Nuala. Do you come here often?
Yeah, just live up the road.
Really?
Yeah.
It's he does. He's not mic'd because obviously, you know,
Is
this
he
was
single?
impromptu.
Yeah.
Are you single?
No, I'm
No.
happily engaged.
Happily engaged. Anyway, it was nice knowing you. So, anyway, that's it about moral standards.
So there you have it. Now, if saying a woman has nice eyes and that you should go get a drink is bad, what sort of how did the world react when this woman basically hit on a man simply for his body and stopped her newscast right in the middle? She was giving the weather report at a beach and she stopped right in the middle to go talk to a man. Now, if the first one is unprofessional, this is highly unprofessional. She should have done her job, and yet she stopped it just to find out if a man was single. Hafner was largely praised for the segment. The report was picked up by other media, and her actions even labeled as brave by at least one news outlet. Of course, there are differences. As one journalist pointed out to Gail yesterday, McLaughlin was at work and should not have been made to feel uncomfortable. So was Gail, where an extra level of professionalism is expected. And then this has also prompted high-profile female journalists to come forward to share their tale of woe. The West Indies cricketer has been fined $10,000, and Channel 10 says he will be stripped of his microphone for the rest of the season as punishment. That, to me, is a bit extreme, especially since this woman was seen as being brave for what she did, which was highly unprofessional. But, I mean, even if you fined him $10,000 for that conduct, I mean, a lot of these men have sponsorship deals and they need media exposure. So it's not going to cost him $10,000. It most likely will cost him a lot more. And to me, this is a bit extreme. Yes, he was unprofessional in what he did. But it's like, one time, you're out. You know, if they said, look, you have to make a public apology, you have to have her, you know, sitting there with you, and you have to convince us that you're sorry for what you've done so you can convince other people not to do it and be a spokesperson on this issue, I could have accepted that. It still would have been a bit too much, but I could have accepted that. Instead, you fine him money and says that he cannot get on TV again. I'm sure he can with other channels, but I'm sure other channels are going to follow suit with Channel 10 and not do anything. So, what does everyone else out there think? My two viewers that I have. So we have a double standard here, and we see this time and time again, but I mean, this woman, you know, stops a news broadcast just to hit on a guy, and yet a man on a sports team is fined so much. And Warped Reflection states he should have been smacked on the wrist. And I agree with that. It should have been like, you shouldn't have done that. It's bad that you've done that, but we're not going to hold it against you for doing it. You know, we're not going to really punish you for doing it. because to me, that is just such an extreme measure. That's basically saying that men, when there's a woman around, you must bow down to her and wait for her to talk to you. And if she does talk to you, you have to do it under a very specific circumstance. That's all that's saying to me. Or else you're going to get fined. Even if she feels uncomfortable and you did nothing to make her feel uncomfortable, she can say you made her feel uncomfortable. Bam! $10,000 fine. So it's really disgusting, in my opinion, that this is the sort of things that just happen. We got a dating website for feminists where men have to jump through extra hoops than any other gender represented on that site just so sorry, the screen is distracting me. Just so they can get to be on that site. So they have to be judged several times because they have a penis. And we talked about divorce rights for fathers and, this bullshit of the double standard that women have to go through just to, the double standard that, it's okay for one, but not okay for the other. And Warped Reflection says it best. Men will be terrified to even give the time of day to females soon. Yeah, the world is forcing men to become MGTOW. I mean, I'm probably one bad incident away with a woman to become full MGTOW. And I share a lot of MGTOW beliefs, but I don't feel that I am properly a MGTOW. But I can see myself become one, that I swear women off altogether. Because that's the consequence of it. That if I say the wrong thing to a female, even if I'm just joking, then my entire life can be destroyed over a misunderstanding. So this is what's happening to our world. It's slowly being destroyed because women feel uncomfortable, and men should have to pay a hefty price for their comfort level. Because they might feel bad, men must pay a hefty price for that. Warped Reflection, for sure. My 19-year-old says he thinks he will be a MGTOW. And that's rather sad. It's sad that someone so young has almost given up on women. That shouldn't be happening, and yet it's going to happen. And it's going to continue to happen because that's what the world is breeding out of our men. Anyways, thank you, Warped Reflection, for hanging out with me today. Also, Kuju Painting. It was also great seeing you. Anyways, that does it for me. Be sure to check out my channel. Hit the subscribe button down below. Give me a like. All the usual jazz. All the articles are listed down below. And also check out my book here. This is access to my free ebook. And if you like that, consider buying the second book, which is just a direct sequel of that book. And it's only $2.99. But as it says here, Vampires, 14th Century, Spreading the Bubonic Plague. It's a very good read. I'm very proud of the work that I've done. Click here to get a free read of it. Follow me on Twitter. Anyways, that does it for me. This is Mad Cat signing out.